simple things that you can do to save the environment and some money. For example, reuse everything that you can, even if it says it's disposable. As long as you don't need to keep sterile, you can reuse things over and over again. Serological pipettes, just go ahead and label the wrapper with what you used it for. Keep it in that wrapper and you can use it over and over again. You don't want to go use the same pipette between different solutions, but you can use the same pipette for the same solution over and over and over again. Just label that wrapper. Similarly, you can reuse things like bottle top filters. Just label what they were for and use it for the same solution. If you are trying to do multiple solutions in something, start with a lower concentration one. And then if you use, say, the same pipette for a higher concentration, after you use it for a lower concentration, you're not really going to mess up anything. But if you use something for like a lower concentration after a higher concentration, then the higher concentration might be a bit left over and stuff like that when you're trying to figure out like what order to pipette things in. Speaking of which, go ahead and make sure you plan things out so that you have something that you can pipette. If you're doing things in multiple wells, try to make something that you can pipette in all the wells without changing your tip before then you go into the next thing. And so don't use the same tip, but like don't go into something after you've been in another tip. But if it's the same solution into like an empty well, go ahead and do that out. You can also reuse things like conical files. Just go ahead and autoclave them. Works like a charm. Those empty tip racks, yeah, no, that's not a tip rack. It's a PCR rack. So basically just tape a couple together and you've got a nice tube holder for your PCR rack. Speaking of which, if you do things in PCR tubes, you're saving plastic over doing things in bigger tubes. If you can do things where you're doing things with a pipette tip with a pipette man, not only is that more, or not pipette man, but like one of those micro pipettes, not only is that more like precise and accurate, but it's actually going to save a lot of plastic versus doing something with one of these big long things. Speaking of which, if you don't have to use plastic, you don't need to. So some things you can use like a glass test tube, you can use glassware, other things like this. Use whatever you can that you can easily wash and reuse. Save that plastic and save the world. Boom.